Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the almost daily Zencast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's talk Trump.
Greetings, my fellow Trumptopians, and happy 4th of Trumptopia to you. What a kickoff, right? Like, the internet is abuzz. Just yesterday, wasn't it yesterday? A total lunar solar eclipse of the sun. The internet fell apart because of the Schumann wave resonance field wake of energy smacking us after that total eclipse. Now this morning, an earthquake. And later tonight, I shit you not, my friends, look it up. Flash flood warnings in Washington, D.C. I don't know about you, but to me, this looks like Mother Nature's pissed. And she's on a roll. And sending some signals. And trying to get through to, me and you. Ooh, gonna write that one down. That's a song lyric for our new band, Purple Mush and the Political Outrage. It's been a year now. I've been trying to make that happen. But this summer, finally, I think, friends, I'm gonna sit down with the not so incredibly new iPad and the not brand spanking anymore new Macintosh desktop-y thing and actually make some music. Crazy, right? Like, who would have thought? The incorrigible Mr. Zeppo thinks he's a musician? That's a whole nother story, right? But holy cow, folks, what a beginning. What a way to kick off what, in my humble opinion, and please, do not misunderstand, let me preface this by saying, I love this thing we call a country unconditionally. Right? Like, I don't need the borders to love it. I don't need the politicians to love what it means to be on this continent surrounded by people. I love this place we call America. But what people often sort of don't grasp is that I love all the places on this Mother Earth womb globy thing. It's not really a globe, that's a misnomer. I don't want to get into a flat earth, globe earth debate. Both of you guys got it wrong. She's alive, it's a womb. What the fuck are you arguing about? I love this place, whether it was Reaganomics or Tricky Dickies or good old JFK's. That was a lovely era. It doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter who's cranking the little organ grinder spinny handle of the American patriotism ideological brainwashing machine. I love the people that have built communities that transcend these imaginary boundaries we call borders, right? And free speech. Which article is that? Of the Constitution? But the free speech thing, I love it. It's my favorite thing about this imaginary construct we call the country, the United States of America, because it's one of the closest things, ideologically speaking, to the truth of the universe, which is, free will is not a political right given to you by some institution or by some group in power. Free will is made manifest by the very nature of reality and how it unfolds. Now, we can go on a trippy fucking rant about free will versus predestination, causality, and how that functions in the universe, and why we simultaneously are bound by what has happened and also radically can alter anything through our manifesting choice, will, action, behavior. But that's a whole nother episode, right? So put a big fat pin in that. Free will and free speech, different things, but ultimately those two things are actually just indicators of some larger truth. And that is this, very simple. America is a country where we argue about what the fuck freedom means. So here we are. I'm presenting to you my thoughts on what real freedom is. And that's the ability to not only say what you want to say, but observe the universe in whatever level of clarity or misguided nonsensory filters that you want to observe the universe through. Right? Everyone has the freedom to think and feel and cling to any mental construct, emotional script, etc., etc., etc. We have that freedom. If there is such a thing, and if this crazy country that we all love and sort of love to hate sometimes too, really does value the idea and the actuality that we indicate with the words freedom, because mind you, those are all three different things, right? The word freedom and the words that follow it in the dictionary that attempt to describe how we might define freedom are different than the mental construct that people have in their minds of what freedom means or is in practical terms, and the actuality as it truly is in the universe. Our problem is that we pretend those things aren't bifurcated that way. We pretend those things don't exist in those different ways that way. And that's what makes it really hard to have conversations about freedom. But in my perspective, from my perspective, real freedom of speech, which we supposedly still have here in this place, that some people call the United States of America, some people literally do call Murica with an apostrophe, no A, and I increasingly, both with love and with satire, called Trumptopia. And don't tell me I'm fucking parroting anybody. I coined that shit. I called it Trumptopia the day he rode down that golden fucking escalator from his gold-plated shitter up in his private bathroom in his little castle in the sky of Trump Tower. So, I love it. People have been coming at me a lot that I'm just parroting the mainstream media, that I'm some sort of victim of what they call the mockingbird agenda. And let me pause everything here and go, what the fuck are you smoking that you're not hearing or reading my words clearly, that you could even think that statement is half true? Where in Mockingbird are they talking about transformative healing of the entire species through spiritual inner work that can only be achieved once you abdicate and let go of your ideological constructs that you're all arguing over? I don't see that on CNN. I sure as fuck don't see that on Fox News. And while MSNBC might be the channel where they first start bringing on quote-unquote hippie spiritualist whack jobs like myself to talk about this sort of thing, I don't think they're doing it just yet. But I digress. Happy 4th of Trumptopia, Trumptopia. Today's one of those days that even before we got to the place we are now, I was always very uncomfortable with. Kind of like Thanksgiving. Do I have to explain Thanksgiving to you and why it's a charmingly beautiful holiday in terms of what people do, get together and eat food, riddled with multiple levels of hypocrisy? Like, they get together and eat food in a gluttonous way, and then also sort of, traditionally speaking, ignore those around them in their own communities and at the state and at the national level that are going hungry. And that often such gatherings on this day are all about people getting together and eating food in the way I just said, and then bitching about everybody else in their world. From family members not there to, the political, ideological constructs they choose to hate. The groups that's, the others. Let's be honest, folks. That's what we do on our holidays. So while there's always a beautiful side, gathering together and loving your family and sharing, creating memories and remembering and honoring those who can't be there and being grateful, expressing gratitude, beautiful things. But also, there's the reality of how that holiday is part of a system of social manipulation, right? And how we already, even if it weren't hijacked by such a system of oppression as I postulate, we kind of crudified it ourselves anyways. And that it's also sort of founded on a big fat bullshit hypocrisy of rape and pillage and, extorting those who lived here originally to get what, the founding fathers wanted, blah, 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 blah. And all of our American holidays are like that. The 4th of July. Here we are. The fuck is the 4th of July actually about? Well, it's a holiday and I'm not leaving the house. Every episode I might record today is automatically a Cannabis Talk crossover episode. But I forgot to put the pot leaves in the pictures. Oh well. So if anyone's confused as to why I'm smoking weed in the middle of Good Morning Trumptopia, it's that. I'm locked in for I might try to do a 48-hour crazy marathon session and just do like, what was that guy who was locked in a tower and just took naps but never slept for 8 hours and invented all those things and screamed Eureka out of the bathtub? Error file not found. His name just totally error file not found. Really eludes me right now. But it's because in different universes his name is really weirdly different because Italians. Beautiful, beautiful people. What a way with words and language and names. But I digress. What the fuck is 4th of July really about? Well, just like I humbly propose to you, my dear fellow citizens of the universe, which I think is really where we should rally, right? Like, let's stop arguing about what country we're from and stop dividing ourselves according to what race we think we belong to and acknowledge that we are all living, breathing citizens of a living, conscious universe that pooped us out of the same place. The womb. Pooped us out is a gross word term, sorry. Let's start there. And then we can have an honest and frank discussion about the crazy holidays we celebrate. And the beautiful things shall not be thrown out with the bathwater. Let us retain those. The origin myth package that we get sold about 4th of July is about our independence. Now, what I find really hilarious right now is that Trump supporters support Trump because he's fighting the internal menace that oppresses us, right? The deep state. So we're not really free. So we don't really have independence. So why are we celebrating? If Independence Day is about the flag and about patriotism, aren't those all tools of the deep state? Isn't that statism? Isn't that the bad guy's way of controlling us that supposedly Trump is fighting against? Except now he's throwing a big military parade, which might get flooded out. He's throwing a big military parade to flex his military power muscles, which he does not have, literally, and figuratively, and technically, because the president doesn't declare wars, you guys. Congressional War Powers Act. I digress. The origin mythos that we get is that, like, we're taking pride. Put a pin in that and go listen to the episode about pride. We're taking pride in our revolutionary act against the evil bastards that oppress us, the king. Now, never mind that, yes, the left-wing media is literally making comparisons to Donald Trump and a king, the Mad King. And let's not get into an argument about the righteousness of the left-wing and right-wing media, okay? For every, where is the outrage post, which, by the way, that's why I make where is the outrage posts. I'm kind of making fun of them. I'm not actually asking where the outrage is, because the outrage is manipulated and controlled from the top down and sideways. But whenever there's where is the outrage post about Democrats, there's a landslide of where is the outrage kind of equivalent truth, but in the opposite direction, right? Like, for every Republican asking where is the outrage about the horrible things Obama did, Look, where's the outrage for all the horrible things every Republican president's done? Like, y'all are pitted against one another. The echo chambers have literally been running since 1776, and they have literally been designed by the same people we rebelled against to get our freedom from. Because, the synchronicities are there to clearly indicate that while we supposedly liberated ourselves from that mad king, we were still basically just a tool of the profiteering war profiteers. We were just a collection of corporations sent here to profit off the land after stealing it from those who lived here in a much less toxic way than, arguably we supplanted them with. Did we really get our independence? Quote unquote. Right? That's a real question that Americans should be asking. Did we really get our independence if 300 years later this is what's going on? And it's not about like England controls us. Of course not. But if there's a little shade of truth to the conspiracy theory about the trifecta of vectors of control, organized religion, the financial institutions, and governance, that these vectors of control are indeed either deeply influenced by highly corrupt and nefarious people, most of whom we don't really know the names of, whoever they parade in front of us as evil boogeymen, as I've said before, and need to remind you all again, those are just the decoys, those are just the red herrings, those are just the people that they will let you kill in a bloody revolution should you actually get away with having it. Because that way, you exercise your lust for blood, you pat yourselves on the back, and you go back to business as usual, and you don't realize, lo and behold, that the revolution, the bloody violence achieved nothing, that the corruption creeps right back in, that the politicians become the kind of political puppets that we hated and threw a revolution against, regardless of what new models and ideological echo chambers and labels and identity masks they come up with. Arguably, we are still living in this illusory proclamation of freedom in a global empire of oppression that centers around profiteering on us and on everything, up to and including our failing health and death. From the cradle to the grave, we are a commodity. We are traded upon, we are bartered against, we are and our lives are impacted by these things, right? There are meta actions going on that are transnational. There are meta actions going on that transcend ideological fronts, because the fronts themselves are tools, right? So what are we celebrating? We're celebrating because they trained us to celebrate. If these holidays are so darkly hypocritical, right? Think about it. Christmas, well, Jesus wasn't born at the time that we claim. All the symbols of Christmas are borrowed from the religions that the oppressive empire of the Catholic Church invaded through violence and pillaging and rape and destruction and the violation of the rights, the human rights of those trying to get on their own, and whatever. Everybody was barbaric at some point, right? If we can digress back further in terms of how I think the origin mythos of all our political nonsense is so curiously similar in all our countries, it comes down to a place that we don't want to talk about. We outdid ourselves in butchering our actual, natural, predatory animals that relied on us as food. At one point in time, we lived that way. We lived much more integrated in nature. And my argument is, should we still be participating in the food chain that way? I don't know, but I bet it would be a completely different world if we'd achieved technology, but we still honored that the food chain is a web, not a top-down pyramid. And in terms of how it works functionally in nature and how it, the whole interaction that we call the food chain is more complicated than just what animals eat what animals, right? It has to do with how the entire ecosystem sustains itself and propagates itself in a healthy way so that it doesn't just collapse. What have we done as people? We out-evolved our intra-connected, interrelated, middle-of-the-web relationship to that whole natural organic mechanism, ecostructures, and then bludgeoned it into submission because we had the capacity to do so. Through what? Free will. Okay, amazing. And while arguably that's a lot less stressful existence because lions and tigers and bears aren't constantly eating us, look around. Today, the moment we're living through is the direct result of those choices and those quote-unquote evolutionary breakthroughs. And this is not a utopian, sustainable, healthy, abundant, beautiful, relaxed and groovy societal system that we live in, guys. This shit's going to collapse on itself no matter what we think or try to do, no matter how hard we try to save it, if we don't acknowledge just how unnaturally toxic it is at its core. And if we keep trying to fix it, all we will do is create a more thunderous, disastrous, and self-damaging collapse of that system. So we celebrate our liberation from one oppressive regime as a way to distract ourselves from the fact that we, here, now, today, under the laws that we venerate, even if, let's pretend Donald Trump wasn't around. Let's pause real quick. Let's pretend this wasn't Trumptopia. And that the absurdly extreme opposite of what we would envision as an ideal or positive, healthy expression of the American dream might be. Let's pretend that John F. Kennedy, JFK, never got assassinated, and that his family and a couple of others were sort of legacy families of American politicians, because that was going on. The Bush family, hello. And it's funny how, everybody, the political entities accuse their enemies of doing exactly what they're doing, right? It's the base gets indoctrinated to that so that then they are just easily confused by what's going on and can just leverage hate instead of really critically assessing what political structures are emerging around them. The right constantly accuses the left of being some form of socialism, but the right literally deploys socialistic tactics not for everyone, but for the elite few who really don't need it anyways. But if you look at those things, the massive tax breaks, the loopholes, the reasons that, the basic doling out of money to corporations that already have a lot of money, if Obama was doing it, it was socialism. But if the right does it, it's not. Someone recently posted on my Facebook sphere of people's, if something you believe in comes out of the mouth of your opposite and you reject it, why do you believe in it? Something like that. I'm totally butchering the quote. They phrased it in a really accurate but hard to read way. But basically they were saying, if the thing you believe in, take pride in, think is true, simultaneously is something that you cannot accept being spoken by your quote-unquote political enemy, your opposite, the other side, then what you're saying can't really be something worth supporting, right? Like, why are you supporting it? If they do it and you hate them for doing it, why is it okay for your team to do it? And why is it so easy for people not to notice that that's exactly what goes on? With a lot of distractions in every direction, right? They really are playing good cop, bad cop really well, really hard. In fact, they're doing that so hard that the political parties of today would not acknowledge or recognize the political leaders of 50 years ago, right? Or 30 years ago even. If Ronald Reagan tried to run for office today, the Republican base, the adamant, hardcore voting Republican base, would probably not recognize him as one of their own. And it's true. They say that about Jesus, right? If Jesus came back right now, most of the people who really are hardcore about proclaiming their Christianity would not recognize him and would not welcome him home into their house right now, today, if he showed up, looking like he would really look like back in the day. If Yeshua Christos and Maria Magdalene knocked on your door, most Christians would turn them away. And I'm sorry, it's easy for Christians to say that's impossible, that's not true, you're just saying that to be hurtful or whatever. But, the facts of the matter are the facts of the matter. They've whitewashed him and transposed him to be something and someone that he is not. And they filled his mouth with a bunch of things that he never said. My favorite is kill them all and let God decide. Jesus with a machine gun. Like, the fuck is wrong with you people? But that's a whole other episode, guys. I always offend the gun lovers. There's nothing wrong with the object. It's the industry, yo. Just like there's nothing wrong with eating meat. But the way the entire food industry is fucked and horrible and toxic and abusive. Not just of the animals, which is a true thing. The entire food industry is abusive of the animals that we consume. For that reason alone, we should transform and or boycott the food industry. And becoming vegan is a particularly good way of doing that, right? But I digress. I'll open up to my hypocrisy. I'm not vegan. I just advocate people considering it as a choice. Up until this point in my life, I haven't been able to afford the hardcore expensive version, right? Which is what I would want to do. Or the really effective organic version, which is to grow my own food. Let's do a whole episode about what a pain in the ass that is to actually try and do in the society we live in right now. But let's reel it back. All of these things are deeply interconnected and inseparable. But we're talking about 4th of July. I think holidays like this, whether or not, I was saying, let's pretend Trump wasn't around. The holidays like this still exemplify exactly what's wrong with the societal system we put up with, that we are born into, find ourselves trapped by, and often allow ourselves to be seduced into loving. That even if Trumptopia was not what was going on right now, the 4th of July would still continue to be, in and of itself, as it has been or would be without Trump, a system of propagating pro-war profiteering, industrial complex, acceptance, normalization, brainwashing. Yay! Even before Trump wanted to put tanks and guns and flyovers into the process, the waving of the flag and the mass reproduction of the image of the flag, which, by the way, is literally against the law. I shit you not. You can look it up. I'm not going to spoon feed this to you. I'm going to challenge you to assume that I'm wrong and go look it up for yourself so you can have that aha moment. But it is literally unconstitutional to print the American flag on napkins, to put it on blankets or pillows, to wear it as clothes, to make it into a hat, to print it on a hat, to wear clothes with the flag printed on it. All of that is unconstitutional and barred by black letter law. It isn't some interpretive thing. It isn't some legal opinion. It is black letter law. The flag shall not be represented in disposable items. The flag will not be represented or in any way made into articles of clothing. And yet, what the fuck do we do on this holiday? We all break the law. We wave little flags. We wipe our dirty fucking faces of all the crazy, shitty junk food we eat with napkins printed with flags. That's the one I love the best. It's literally against the law to print the symbol of the American flag on anything that is disposable. But man, do we love them American flag napkins, an American flag paper, plastic table toppers, and all the shit that we literally spend money on, tons of money that really we could be feeding people with it instead of decorating our homes with a meaningless statist symbol. Right? Like, the symbol stands for equality for all. Look at the level of equality. The symbol stands for every man is created free under the eyes of God. And look at the way we treat each other and somehow regard some people as not even human. The symbol represents all these things that we don't live up to. And then we turn around and make a holiday that, in the bold face of the black letter law, seduces us into doing all these things we are not technically supposed to do. Why? So someone can make money on it. Instead of taking all of that collective effort, energy, and money into building more houses for the homeless, feeding the people who are starving on the streets of our cities, and, I don't know, replacing the pipes in motherfucking Flint. Sorry, I didn't mean to call them motherfuckers, right? Like, at this point, the word is offensive. Flint, Michigan, not because of the people there or because I hate the place, but because of the impossible amount of inaction that has just been tolerated, and by the politicians. When I say we tolerate this, I mean those in charge tolerate this. There's plenty of us out here in the world living lives that do not tolerate this and speak out against it. But I digress. That is what the 4th of July is. And that's just one level, right? What else do we do on the 4th of July? We love them fireworks. Never mind the poor puppy dogs, either in, hiding under beds or under cars or running around, freaking out and having heart attacks, or in the kennels. Bless the hearts of all those people who are going out to kennels to hang out with puppy dogs so that they don't freak out, right? Because the noise is worse inside a kennel because it's all acoustically shitty in there. And, never mind the human beings with PTSD because we sent them off to fight a war we didn't need to fight, who are now, freaked out by the noise of blowing things up that reminds them of being shot at or being blown up. And bless the hearts of all those who are, instead of going to fireworks displays, spending time with veterans so that they have someone to talk to and not be triggered by the fireworks noise, right? We blow up these fireworks and wait for it, folks, because I'm really amazed that there isn't and hasn't always been a conspiracy theory outrage community about this. Okay, let me put in this sidebar. It fascinates me to no end that everyone's up in arms about 5G, right? Which is great. The product is toxic. Everyone is up in arms about, I forget what they call it, but the thing with the they're spraying us from the airplanes, and they're altering our weather artificially by spraying shit from the airplanes, But no one I've yet ever, I'm sure there are others, but I haven't come across y'all. If you're out there, connect with me on the social medias. But I've been aware of this from the moment I was like, how does that work? I was a very curious child. And mind you, let me state, as part of this preamble about what I'm about to say, visually speaking, artistically speaking, experientially speaking as audience, I get it, yo. There's beauty, there's awe, there's a upwelling of feeling. There's you can tell story with fireworks. You can make people feel emotion feels with fireworks. I get it. It's a beautiful thing. Let me disclose this to you. I used to work at Disneyland. Way back in the day. I spent on 2 different occasions, almost a whole year working at Disneyland here in Southern California. And the first time I worked at Disneyland, I had the good fortune of being part of the evening fireworks-related celebrations. I drove the Main Street Electrical Parade. Not the whole thing, but I was in one of the many, what do you call them? One of the many vehicles propelling the lights, the light thingies. I was in one of the, I was either the pirate ship or my favorite one to drive was the pumpkin coach. But my point here is, as it relates to fireworks, is that my lunch break, basically, on 2 show days, on double parade days, or nights, really, was always spent, I would scarf that food down because I had about 6 minutes from getting off my float after parking it. That's what they're called, floats. I couldn't remember that. I said vehicle. You had to park the float in a very specific way, and I'm not trying to get Disney mad at me. I don't want to reveal insider things, but I would rush into the whatever we called it back then. There was a cool name for the diner. We had a little employee diner on the backside of where of the park, where we would park these things at the top of Main Street, and I would get through the line and scarf my food down and run outside to watch the fireworks display because I was a fan. It was beautiful. And although I couldn't quite hear the music, not the way you can, all lush and really beautifully focused, because yes, you can focus sound. As if I were in the park as an audience member watching it the way it's intended, I still got all the vibes and feels because of my, at that point, lifetime's worth of nostalgic memories of coming to the park as a kid with my family. Because we moved here from another country, because we had, we were invited to do so by a corporation, And in other words, we came here all the right ways, which is funny because coming here all the right ways is almost exactly like coming here all the wrong ways, except the company involved in the hiring does it a little different. And we'll do a whole other episode about that because, immigration, hot topic. Concentration camps at the border, yay, let's celebrate that. I know, horrible, right? There's a whole controversy. Is that offensive to Jews? It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be taking offense that they use that term because this is how it started back then. It was a slippery slope of, no, they're not really concentration camps. And then they became concentration camps. And it took time, folks. But I digress. Fireworks, man, I get it. They're pretty. They're awesome. You know what else they are, my friends and dear listeners? They are literally toxic waste. Toxic waste that sparkles in a pretty color. And then you have to, for weeks and weeks and weeks, I shit you not, breathe in on the collective volume of that toxic waste that we just spent one evening pumping into every year. Whew. The first time I hit that information hit me, I really had to take a moment. Because, mind you, up until then, I hearted fireworks shows. Loved them. It's a hard pill to swallow. But 7 million plus people a year, or is it 700 million? I don't remember. I need to look that number up again because I made that meme, I think, going on almost 4 years ago. So it's probably a larger number now. But let's just keep it at 7 million. It doesn't matter because that many people, more than 1 million is too many people, period, in my opinion, for the reasons I'm about to say, what the fuck. But 7 million people a year fall over dead explicitly because of air pollution. What are the, top 5 biggest contributors to air pollution? The following list is by no means scientific and is probably going to be somewhat incorrect. But this is my gut response based on things I know that are indeed factual. So if I'm a little wrong, forgive me. It doesn't mean the whole thing is wrong, is my point. But up there, for sure, and I'm not ranking them in the order that I think them to be in, but up there in the top 10, let's say, to give myself plenty of room for error, are, as a matter of fact, to the best of my ability to assert, in terms of volume, particulate matter, into our breathing environment, air that we must breathe that is polluted by the following things, agencies, institutions, and or events. The military itself, in terms of how many combustion engines they operate constantly, whether we're at war or not. Just the fact that we have fleets and fleets and fleets and fleets and fleets of things burning fossil fuels. Up there. Top 3, I'm fairly certain. I think I read somewhere on the internet, in multiple places, by credible sources, credible to me, although I can't recall exactly where they were right now, because that's not the way I do my show, that they might very well be the military, I'm speaking. And let's just lump it all together and say the world's military, right? To not pick on America. And actually, it improves the odds that the following statement is actually factually true. But if we were to combine the entire world's military, every single vehicle of every type, shape, size, form, etc., number one cause of pollution, source of pollution on the planet. Number 1. All right? So I'm fairly certain that up there in the top 10 with that is fireworks. I think. I could be wrong. But for a one-day thing, that it isn't just a one-day thing because we have fireworks around the world all over the place, all the time, all year round. So 4th of July, New Year's Eve, rich people's birthdays, concerts at the Hollywood Bowl, any Disneyland every night of the year, Florida Disneyland every night of the year, right? Anywhere that does fireworks. Think about it. And what the fuck are fireworks? Heavy metal, greenhouse gases, arsenic, copper, aluminum, barium, cadmium, carcinogens, gunpowder, lead dioxide, strontium, lithium, mercury, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, polychlorinated dioxin. Remember the outrage when we realized that cigarettes were, well, dirty, toxic bullshit things that you really shouldn't be sucking down on? That maybe tobacco, in its purest form, the way our indigenous elders did it back in the day, limited intake, ceremonial ritual, for a particular consciously selected purpose, and not pumped full of a bunch of bullshit chemicals. Maybe back then smoking tobacco wasn't all that toxic and horrible for you, but the way we mass-produced it was just horrible and toxic for you and just really abusive of your body, and, oh, by the way, also really addictive. And, oh, by the way, still really enjoyable, so they really built a really whammo product there. Oh, and they're profiteering on you dying from cancer. That understanding, that revolution, that change, which, you know, plenty of people still smoke, that industry's still around, profiteering on us dying from cancer. But I think the reason I've stopped giving a shit about it, and I think maybe subconsciously the reason most of us have stopped giving a shit about it, is because, oh yeah, as it turns out, everything gives you cancer. Already rambled about that. But let's stop and put some conscious focus on this obsession with celebrating a freedom that we may not really have unless we're white, Christian, and wealthy. And even then, it's still a very beautiful, vivid illusion of freedom because you're suffering a lot of mental slavery with the ideological constructs that limit and or control your behavior that are pumped down your throat your entire life. So it's easy to kind of want to hate bash all the elitist, powerful, white, old Christian men. But guess what, folks? They're mental slaves too. They're not any freer than you or I bitching and moaning about this free-range debt prison that we live in, right? That we still go out and love parades about. Obviously, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate America. Don't accuse me of that bullshit. I don't hate living here. I love all the good things that this place is. But my love is not conditional on you being conformist to any ideology. My love is not conditional to you abdicating your free will and your ability to think for yourself in favor of what the politicians pump out. My love for this place and this community and these people is not conditional on you or me or anyone else complying with the bullshit that they try to sell us. So don't accuse me of hating this place. Don't accuse me of being an American hater. No. But to blind faithfully bend over for the system of oppression is not to love your country either, I would humbly propose. To wave an illegal little piece of plastic trash, and by illegal I mean you aren't supposed to mass produce little plastic flags that then go into the dumpster, which is what happens, guys. What do you think happens to all those fucking flags? We don't recycle things, remember? Newsflash, for those of you who don't know. Most of the recycling industry has turned out to be impractical and unprofitable, and so they kind of been bullshitting, bundling all the plastic and selling it to China. Oh, China doesn't want to take it anymore, so I think we're selling it to 3 other small Asian countries that are like, fuck it, we'll take it. We need the money. Right? So never mind that even if you think those millions and millions and millions of disposable flags are going to, yay, they're going to be greenly recycled. Nah, not really. It's all a sham. Most of it anyways. Yes, there are real recycling centers. Yes, there are places. Yes, there are new up-and-coming activist companies. Like, what's the name of that ocean company that pulls plastic out of the ocean? There's a few now, thank God. But none of that effort is enough. And my point in terms of 4th of July. It was illegal in the first place because your fucking laws that you claim to know and understand and cherish tells you not to make disposable garbage with the image of your flag on it. Don't accuse me of hating this. By the way, I'm on that rant because people accuse me of hating this country a lot. I'm one of those people that gets said once people get triggered by the kinds of criticism that I think the free will and free speech that this community affords me, or is supposed to afford me, and all of us, once they get into it and they start hearing me critique it and not blindly, mindlessly lather blind faith love on it for no fucking reason. Statements of love are not the same thing as loving something, by the way. Saying that you love the Bible doesn't mean you've read it and understood it, by the way. Labeling yourself a Christian doesn't really mean you understand what Christos practiced, by the way. Saying under God on your money doesn't really mean that you have a genuine communicative two-way I'm listening and conversing with you relationship to God, by the way. Proclaiming that God speaks to you and then profiteering on that doesn't really prove or mean that God is actually speaking to you, by the way. So, what the fuck are we celebrating, folks? Right? Like, this mishigas, this craziness, this toxic waste that we blow up over our heads for a momentary thrill and then ignore the fact we've got to breathe in for a month and a half. And that it's not just, wherever there was a fireworks show. It's the entire planet, yo. Because the ecosystem of our air is finite and contained within the atmospheric, I hate to use the word sphere, the atmospheric dome. That's a whole can of worms. That's slightly separate from flat Earth versus globe Earth in that there is a truth to the dome, but it's being misrepresented and misused. The air we breathe is all one and interconnected, and every nanoparticle of bullshit that we pump into it, whether it's our personal transport vehicles, which, by the way, is totally up there in the top 10 list of things that are killing you. No matter what you think, no matter what you believe, sitting in your own car is slowly killing you, especially if you've got to drive 2 hours a day, which a lot of us do have to do increasingly because of the way the economy bifurcates the places of work and the affordable places to live at. But these fireworks, man, are not something that we really should be so in love with. And that was hard for me to come to. And I know it's going to be really difficult for others to come around to that too, because it's wrapped up with this bullshit idea of patriotism. And if you're not a patriot, oh boy, are you in trouble in America if you're not patriotic. We'll have to put a pin in there, come back and do a part 2 and examine what the fuck is patriotism actually? But let me close with this. My favorite part of my favorite meme about fireworks, which I already shared, and I tend to share almost every year on Facebook, ends with this. At the bottom of the image of a crowd watching the fireworks and little arrows pointing out, this is a greenhouse gas. This was poisoning the environment. It's fine toxic dust. This causes acid rain. It corrodes our ozone layer. And the list of the horrible toxic things in fireworks, the bottom of the meme, in the dark space where the crowd is, implying, it's a conversation being had under the fireworks show, which I love. I want to put this in a movie. Is a little kid has, phrasing, the characters are, "Mom, why do we have to do this every year?" Mom replies, "Because the war profiteers who own all our governments love to brainwash us with toxic entertainment that isn't even as patriotic as it is designed to make us feel, son."
And that is the latest madness from behind the orange wall. Thank you for listening to GMT, a special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Stay woke, Trumptopia. Stay woke.